If you want to run your fastest ever half marathon, I'm here to prove to you that there are only 5 workouts you actually need.
Say what?
Because a lot of people training for a half marathon are either slamming their long runs, overdoing their easy runs, or worse, doing the same threshold workouts time and time again and wondering why they're not getting any faster. I'm going to give you 5 sessions that hit on everything the half marathon demands from you, including one session that has been game-changing for me for all race distances. Why should you listen to me? I'm a 2:25 marathon runner, coach, and I'm also training for a half marathon race myself right now. Stay tuned to find out which one later on.
Which is in.
And these are exactly the type of sessions I run and coach for the half marathon. By the end, you'll have 5 workouts that you can slot straight into your training plan, plus a beginner version of every single one. So wherever you're starting from, there's a way in. And you're gonna wanna stick around until the last workout because that is the one that tells you if you're race ready. All right, let's get stuck into these workouts, shall we?
As you may have noticed from the setting of the start of this video, we are living in a building site right now. So I apologize. It's not going to be super aesthetically pleasing, but I'm going to be filming in our bedsit. This is Daniel's desk. Our bed's over there, the kitchen's over there. All of our belongings are in this one room whilst we renovate the upstairs. It's a fun old time. A time for which I am even more grateful that I get to go outside and run and escape it all. Which brings me to workout number 1, the progression run. And we're gonna have a big range on this one because I wasn't joking when I said that there's gonna be a beginner version of all of these workouts. I want this to be accessible to everyone, no matter your level. So be sensible with it. Pick the point in the range that feels right for you right now. And that range is 8 to 12 miles or roughly 13 to 19 kilometers. And not all of that volume is gonna be hard or even close to hard because we are starting out correct. Easy. Genuinely easy. Now, I can't tell you exactly what pace that is for you because it's different for everyone and it's also different on any given day. So we're going to check that we are running at a conversational pace, probably around 60 to 90 seconds per mile, maybe more, or 40 to 60 seconds per kilometer, at least slower than your goal half marathon pace, okay? My half marathon PB pace is around 5 minutes and 30 seconds per mile, which is 3:25 per kilometer. And for this type of progression run, my easy pace would probably be 90 plus seconds per mile slower than that. So around 7 minutes per mile or roughly 4:20 per kilometer. So important thing number 1 for this workout, park your ego, especially at the start, because the easy part is what's going to allow you to progress later into the workout. You're going to build gradually. You're going to take at least 2 to 3 miles up to 5 kilometers nice and easy at the start so that we're warming up at the start of the progression. And then we are just going to gradually progress down like a massage so that you're running the final 2 to 3 miles, 3 to 5 kilometers at or close to your half marathon race pace. Doesn't need to be exactly there, just needs to be around a similar intensity. So if you're at the start of a training block and your goal half marathon pace is a little bit further away right now, that's fine. As long as it feels like race intensity, stay there. Don't absolutely slam yourself to hit that pace. And for this one, I want it to feel like you have arrived at that pace over those last couple of miles, not like you have been grinding it out at that same intensity from the start or anywhere near halfway. Why is the progression run such a good workout for the half marathon specifically? It's because it teaches your body to train on tired legs, which is exactly what the second half or the last third of a half marathon race is gonna feel like. It builds aerobic strength, super important for the half marathon, and you're gonna get some race specific fatigue, positive fatigue, in one session. The reason that fatigue is positive is because you don't get the training adaptations you want without some damage. This is controlled damage, and we're doing it in training so that when we get to the race, we're ready for it. It's really important that the progression is gradual. You don't want to see any harsh jumps in your progression graph. And that way, you're not going to go out too hard. And it's going to mean that the quality miles or kilometers right at the end are actually more valuable because you can actually run them without killing yourself. Here's an example of how you might pace it. In this example, we have someone who is aiming for a 1:45 half marathon. That's a nice round number because it's 8 minutes per mile and 5 minutes per kilometer. So for the first 1 to 4 miles or 1 to 6 kilometers, we're starting out at around 9:45 to 10 minutes and something per mile. We're in the mid to low 6 minutes per kilometer. Nice and easy, nice and relaxed. We're talking about what we had for breakfast that day. Then for miles 5 to 8, kilometers 7 to 13, we're just turning the screw. You'll notice there's some big ranges here. I want you to be within that range, wherever feels right for you, and progressing through it. You should feel like you're building and it's comfortably hard, but you are in control. And if you're going for the maximum volume, from miles 9 to 12 or kilometers 14 to 19, we're just turning that screw some more. We're still allowing ourselves to sit within a range, so it's not half marathon goal race pace bang on and nothing either side of that. Terrain's gonna come into it, weather's gonna come into it, feel is gonna come into it. Give yourself permission to be at the intensity of half marathon race pace. That's why there's a bit of a buffer here. 10 seconds slower per kilometer, absolutely fine. 15 seconds slower per mile, also fine. We're working, but we're still in control. It is not all out. I don't want to see anyone aiming for a 5K PB at the end of this workout. And then over here, this one's a bit more beginner friendly. We're just doing 8 to 9 miles, 13 to 14 kilometers. We're not going to worry about hitting half marathon race pace at the end because that can be pretty stressful when we try and hone in on an exact pace when perhaps our pacing brain isn't quite as well trained yet. We're just going to focus on the feeling of running faster and it being slightly more intense at the end. That is why instead of putting paces here, we have got RPE, which is rate of perceived exertion. That is a scale that you can use regardless of the weather, regardless of how you're feeling, regardless of the terrain. It is an effort level that you are rating onto the performance that you're currently undertaking. And that basically is the first third would be a 3 to 4 out of 10, the middle third would be a 5 to 6 out of 10, and the last third would be a 7 to 8 out of 10. And those final miles, they should feel comfortably hard, but not maximal. You can take a walking break at the end of those easy miles before starting the rest of the progression if you need to, if that makes it a little bit less intimidating for you. And the emphasis here is the shape of the effort, not the exact numbers. And if you're in need of a pre-workout warm-up, have a little look at this video up here where I share my warm-up and give you some tips around how you might implement some of that into yours so that we are nice and warm, primed, and ready. Workout number 2 is one that I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with. It is a 6-mile steady state. Or if you're working in kilometers, I am happy for you to do 10K. Just know you're gonna be running about 300 meters further. That's what you get for working in kilometers and not miles. I don't make the rules. And the word steady state is pretty interchangeably used with the word tempo. Over here in Europe, we tend to say tempo a little bit more often. Over in America, it's referred to as a steady state. It's the same thing. You're running at a comfortably hard pace, pretty consistently. You wanna see a pretty flat line pace graph for the whole run. Right in the zone between LT1 and LT2. Those are the 2 turn points in which we see your blood lactate volume increase in your bloodstream. Yeah, that's right. Blood lactate volume in the blood makes sense. And this is one that does get easier to judge the more times you've done it because you want to hit the right intensity. If you overcook it, you're going to be in a bad way towards the end. If you undercook it, it's raw. You can finish feeling like it wasn't really a workout. It's not easy, but it's also not a race. It sits in the middle, which is why it's called steady state. And between easy and hard, we have steady. This should feel like a 6 to 7 out of 10 in terms of effort. For me, I describe that as you could speak a few words if you absolutely had to, but you wouldn't want to hold a full conversation with someone. If you want another metric to hinge off to try and inform your pace for this, your heart rate is probably going to be between 75 to 85% of your maximum heart rate. And this is probably one of the most underrated sessions in distance running. It works for the 5K right the way up to the marathon. Obviously, for those training in the 5K, a 6-mile steady state is going over distance, and for the marathon, it's a pretty short session. So why does it work for both? It contributes to building a huge aerobic base. Over time, if you do this workout several times, you're going to notice that in your races. And on top of helping to build that aerobic base, it does so without a huge recovery cost. You're not going to the well, you're not doing crazy volume, you're just keeping things pretty moderate. And if you can get really good in this zone, everything else gets easier. Or you just get faster. Both pretty good outcomes. Here's how I would pace it if I was a 1:45 half marathon runner. You're gonna pitch that steady state at 20 to 25 seconds per mile slower than half marathon race pace, or around 15 to 20 seconds per kilometer. And for beginners wanting to try this workout, just cut the volume down. Try 4 miles to start off with. 6.43738 kilometers. Call it 6.5K. And if you don't have any clarity on where your LT1 and your LT2 is, or even what your maximum heart rate is, just go by feel. You want it to feel controlled, but nowhere near an easy jog. 6 out of 10. And that way you can build up to the full 6 miles or 10K over several weeks, perhaps doing this session every other week with a different session filtered in the off weeks to give you some variety. Yeah, surprise yourself with how easy it gets or how much faster you get. It's one of the two. Next up, we have a workout that I actually was the guinea pig for. I did this workout just for you guys so that you could see what it's like in practice. We have another classic in my opinion, 3 to 4 times 2 miles. Now, that doesn't translate very nicely into Ks. Again, you're going to be doing more volume if you want to do kilometers. It'll be 3 to 4 times 3 kilometers. Wait, no, that's less volume because 2 miles is 3.2 kilometers. Okay, switched around this time. Swings and roundabouts. And those reps are going to be at goal half marathon pace. You can also do this workout at marathon pace as a little bit of an easing in. I sometimes do this one at threshold, which is slower than my half marathon pace. That was the case in this example I'm about to show you. It's a pretty daunting one, and it is a level below a harder workout that's coming later on in the video. So if it intimidates you, try it at a slightly slower pace first. 6 to 8 miles at goal half marathon pace is legit. So give yourself permission to do it at marathon pace or just a touch slower than your half marathon goal pace to start with to dip your toe in. The recovery between the reps is a nice range. So you're going to take between 90 seconds and 3 minutes, depending on how much you need. I would say don't be greedy with the recovery. The likelihood is you're probably going to progress into that recovery. So after 1 rep, you might only need 90 seconds. After 2 reps, it might be 2 minutes. After 3, it might be 2.5, 3 minutes. You want to keep moving rather than standing completely still during that rest, because funnily enough, that does help you recover faster. As long as you're walking or even doing a slow jog, it's gonna feel better when you start running again versus just standing still and letting all that crap accumulate in your legs. And for this one, I'm gonna give you an insight into what my mind sounds like the morning of a hard workout. And you can tell me if any of the thought processes I have are similar to what you guys are experiencing. When I wake up and realize this is the session I have, I know that I'm gonna need to be brave today. It's a decent volume of reps, and I'm feeling tired from the training I have already been doing. I'm gonna stick to what I know. I'm gonna have a trusted breakfast that sits well on my stomach, and I'm also taking a shot of Nomeo. It's recommended to take 2 to 3 hours before a workout like this, and there's research to show that it can help reduce lactate buildup and something called oxidative stress. So for a session like this, that is definitely something I am signing up for. I poke fun at myself a little bit, not being able to find the things I need, my watch, my sunglasses, my kit, and then I get out the door and try and distract myself from thinking about the session. And when I can't do that, I fall back on things that are tried and trusted. My go-to warm-up routine that I know like the back of my hand, the drills that make me feel good, and I get Daniel to put some banging tunes on whilst he's accompanying me on the bike so that it at least feels a little bit like a party. Because if we can convince ourselves it's fun before it's actually fun, that's trickery right there. It's gonna be great fun. Having that broken up format means that you're going to be able to hit the pace more consistently than if you were doing one long chunk trying to hit half marathon pace. And those latter reps, the 3rd and 4th rep, if you're doing the full 4, they are going to be the closest simulation you can get in training to race conditions. We are not doing 13 miles of goal half marathon pace in one workout in training. 8 miles is plenty. This is also the kind of workout that I think is a really good one to do a bit of a dress rehearsal for things that you're going to be using on race day. So if you are fueling for the race, if you are unsure which shoes you're going to wear, if you want to make sure that the outfit you're wearing isn't going to chafe and that it's comfortable, you're out there running for a decent amount of time. With the recoveries in there, you're maybe doing nearly 3/4 of the half marathon distance if you're jogging those recoveries, and you're running at the same pace you're going to be racing at. I'd be pretty comfortable racing a half marathon in the outfit that I'm wearing in this workout because I know it doesn't chafe, I know it's comfortable, I feel good in it, and if you're interested in either of those, the product links to those Lululemon items are in the description below. Here is how I would pace this workout if I was aiming for a 1:45 half marathon. For reps 1 to 2, and maybe rep 3 as well, we're aiming for 8-minute miling on the nose or 5 minutes per kilometer. But I would add a buffer of around 5 seconds over and 5 seconds under so that you can respond to how you're feeling in the environment, in the weather, all the external variables we have to deal with. In the first couple of reps, you're focusing on finding a rhythm, feeling controlled. As you're building into that 3rd one, you're going to be deciding, am I doing 3 reps today? Am I doing 4? If you're feeling good and you're going to go for the full hog, maybe we're squeezing a little bit, running that 3rd rep just a little bit faster. And if you go all the way to 4, turning the screw just that little bit on the last rep can help simulate the end of a race where you are really trying to get that last little bit out of your legs and run a tiny bit faster on tired legs. And here is the beginner version. Instead of doing 2 miles, we're going to do 3 times 1.5 miles or 2,400 meters. Nice round number. And you are also being treated to a full 3 minutes recovery in between those reps, because running a half marathon pace is intimidating, and I want this to feel like a celebration of being able to do that rather than absolutely burying yourself in your first attempt. And you're going to be focusing on consistency across all of those reps. I don't want to see a push at the end. Even splits for this first attempt, that is the goal. Workout number 4 is a really fun one, and you know that's true because I gave this to Daniel whilst he was doing his half marathon training way back when, and he doesn't really love running, so I tend to try and give him fun workouts so that he enjoys himself. And the workout even has a fun name. It's called over-unders, because you're literally going over and under. Not like, you're not going, you know, it's not an assault course, but in terms of your pace. But anyway. Total volume, 6 to 10 miles or 10 to 16 kilometers. And within that, each mile or each kilometer is going to alternate between 2 pace groups. One is slightly slower than your goal half marathon pace, and the other one, you guessed it, is slightly faster, hence over under. I'd probably say the alternating Ks option is slightly more beginner friendly than the miles option because you're just asking yourself to sustain that pace for slightly less time. So even if you work in miles and this one seems a little bit daunting, try it in Ks to start off with. And that's not me saying that Ks are the right way to measure all of your runs. That's just me saying it might feel better. I don't want to get myself into a sticky situation here. And effectively, you're just going to repeat that pattern over, under, continuously throughout the whole session. It's effectively a run with no rest, no recoveries in between. But the unders, where you're not quite hitting your half marathon race pace, gives you a little bit of respite, a little bit of recovery from those overs that are in between that feel a little bit stingy. So the under reps should feel manageable. At the start of those, your heart rate might be pretty high. You might be in quite a bit of discomfort because you've just finished an over, but by the end of the under, you'll be pretty ready to go again. The over is where the work really happens, but it is the continuous effort of this workout that gives you the bang for buck. I love this workout, particularly for people who are trying to get a little bit of race simulation in their training. We're not stopping and jogging and recovering, and it's mimicking the surges in pace that you very well might experience during a race. It's going to train your body to recover whilst you're still running at a pretty respectable pace, and the discomfort of the faster reps, if you like, is followed by a pseudo recovery that is still fast and takes some concentration. It's still uncomfortable, and that is exactly what racing feels like. Here's how one might pace it for a 1:45 half marathon goal. For our unders, so our slower than race pace miles or kilometers, 20 to 30 seconds slower per mile, 15 to 25 seconds slower per kilometer. And I don't want you to get too het up in the numbers here because it is much more about an intensity. This is just to give an example. If half marathon race pace is roughly a 7 out of 10, this should be a 6. For our overs, so the faster Ks, the faster miles, around 10 to 15 seconds faster per mile, roughly 10 seconds faster per kilometer. Not quite as much faster than the goal race pace than the slower reps are slower, and that's because we don't want you on the floor. Though I will say this is a very legit workout. This is not going to be easy. It's potentially harder than the 2-mile reps, even though your average pace is going to be just a touch slower than race pace. It's a lot of continuous volume, which is why for the beginner version, we are just going to do 4 miles or 6.5 kilometers. And for that half a kilometer, you can decide whether you are going over or under by just carrying on at the pace that you were doing or alternating to the next one. So if you start with an under, which I would recommend, odd numbers under, you start with the easier pace. You're gonna finish on an over. You can either carry on with that over for half a kilometer or come back to the under and finish it off. I'm also gonna make that pace differential slightly easier for the beginner version of this. So like before, if half marathon pace is a 7 out of 10, the overs are about an 8, the unders are maybe a 5. We're gonna pull that down a little bit. So maybe half marathon pace is a 7 out of 10 effort. The overs only need to be 7.5, and the unders, they could be a 5 to 6. And rather than getting het up in the numbers, you wanna focus on rhythm,
feel the rhythm,
and consistency. Provided we can see a clear differential between those odds and evens trading off against each other, that is perfect. Don't stretch it too far in either direction, otherwise you end up doing all out miles and jogs. That's not the idea. Before we get on to the last workout, I just remembered that I haven't told you which half marathon I'm racing yet, which I promised I would do. And I'm not sure exactly where it will land by the time this video is out, but I think very shortly after this video comes out, I will be racing my half marathon, which is in Vancouver, which is somewhere I've never been before, so I'm super excited to head out there. I'm racing with Lululemon at the Seawees half marathon over in Vancouver. I haven't raced a half marathon in a really long time. I think it takes me all the way back to the Mesa half marathon that I did during the London Marathon block in spring 2025, which was also a pretty controlled effort because I was in the middle of a marathon block. It's gonna be a really cool challenge to have a go at this race distance for the first time in a long time. It is not a flat course. I hear that there are some stinking hills in there, which I am also ready to have fun with. Type 2 fun, I think. That's gonna be the kind of fun where like it's fun when it's done, not fun whilst it's happening. So if you want to see how that race goes, hit the subscribe button and come back to watch the race video, which we will be sharing shortly after the race. And this final workout is even more relevant since I've just spoken about the race I'm doing, because this is the one that is going to help you know whether you are race ready. It is the most legit of all of these workouts. It's the toughest, and if you can get through this running your goal pace or there or thereabouts consistently for the whole thing, you're in a pretty good spot to pull that off. And this is the only one where it is only in kilometers. There's no miles here because we want a specific distance, and that is 2 times 5 kilometers at goal half marathon pace. Sure, that's less than a quarter of a half marathon per rep, and you're only doing 2 of them. When we race a half marathon, we've done a whole block, we've done a taper, and we have a race atmosphere around us with nerves and all the rest of it. So this is really difficult to pull off in training, which is why you get a healthy 4 minutes of recovery. And honestly, if you need 5, I'll allow it. That's gonna give you a total volume of 10 kilometers at half marathon pace, which if you can pass that test and even be within 5 seconds of your half marathon pace, you're in a fantastic spot to take on that race pace during a race and pull it off. And I would only recommend taking on this race around 3 to 4 weeks out from your goal race, which means that the bulk of the work is done. You're in a really good spot. You're probably almost as fit as you're gonna get now because the taper's on the way, and it's the best opportunity to test whether that pace is realistic. Don't go doing this in week 1 of the block because you haven't done the work yet. There's a lot of fitness to gain for you to be able to put into this workout later on. This is a very race specific session, and that is why the reps are long enough that you can't fake them. If you really miss on this workout, either there's something else going on that's an external variable that we can't control for, or you need to adjust that race pace goal. 2 miles worth of this, you can muscle through on adrenaline. 2x5K with a fairly mean recovery gives you some pretty truthful values. And that's not meant to scare you, but I don't want you to take this one on unless you're ready for it. Ideally, you're taking 4 minutes recovery, which is relatively short for a 5K rep, which means you're starting the next rep on tired legs, which is the closest thing you're going to experience to mile 9 of a half marathon. And the signal with this one isn't, did I finish it? Did I run the average paces? That's super useful and really great information to have, but it's also, do I think I could have done another rep if I absolutely had to? Not, am I going to do another one right here, right now? That is not what I'm telling you to do. But if you feel like in a race environment with everything around you, if push came to shove, you could deliver a 3rd rep at that pace, your goal pace is pretty real. It's the same type of session as those 2 mile reps that we had earlier on, but that rep length has grown a little bit. More time continuously running at that pace with fewer breaks is going to show you a little bit more about how sustainable that race pace is. And that's why it's a natural progression. I definitely want you to be doing those 3 to 4 by 2 miles once, maybe even twice before you're taking on this session. And the example for a 1:45 half marathon for this is just literally locking in. Your pace splits don't have to each be exactly 8 minutes on the nose, 5 minutes on the nose. We can have a bit of over-under. You're gonna have that in the race. Give yourself permission to let go of perfection. But if you can average within a few seconds of that goal race pace, that's what we wanna see. And I really struggled, to be honest, to find a beginner version of this one. I would just cut the volume down and either do 2 times 3K, 2 times 4K, or trying it for 1 5K. That's scary enough. If you've never raced a half marathon before, go down to your local park run and race the park run at your goal half marathon pace. That's probably gonna take some restraint because it's easier to just race that 5K all out, but doing 1 5K at half marathon race pace might give you the confidence to then try this workout in the near future. If you've enjoyed this video and you think maybe you're gonna try even one of these workouts, please hit the like button, consider subscribing, and leave a comment below with any workouts that you would recommend adding into your half marathon block. I would love to hear them. And as always, guys, love the grind. Good luck with your races.